Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Joan Winsenson. I'm the Executive Director with Conquer Myasthenia Gravis, and I'm glad to be here today to bring you this afternoon's webinar, which is called Eating to Combat Prednisone, but actually any weight gain. We'd like to thank our sponsor, argenx, who's helping us to bring this presentation to you today. And then I have a couple of disclaimers and reminders. We'd like to remind you that each person's experience is unique, and this webinar should not be considered a substitute for medical advice. Next slide. Okay, the views expressed here today are the speaker. She's offering her own views. It doesn't exactly reflect, it doesn't mean that these are the views of Conquer Myasthenia Gravis. One other point today, today's conversation is about nutrition. It's not about the medical aspects, even though we mentioned prednisone in the title, it's not about medical information. So questions about medication and how to treat your MG should be, we'll have to wait for another day. Okay, that said, today we'll be hearing from Danka, I'm going to say this right, Lakovic, Danka Lakovic. We're very glad that she's here today. Danka is an NASM certified personal trainer and certified nutrition coach. She's got lots of great information for us.
Thank you.
Okay, good afternoon, Danka, and welcome.
Thank you. I guess first of all, I want to start off by saying welcome, and we definitely heard you in all the statements, comments, and questions you submitted during registration, and you are overwhelmingly concerned with the knowledge that you need to make better food choices, and also the making progress, that you want to make progress, and the progress has been hard. And I applaud you, because having MG makes it kind of difficult. You have the non-MG related issues to deal with that we all face. We have stress, we have trouble with willpower and discipline, and then you have issues related to MG that exacerbate it, the challenges. You've got medications that you're on, the stuff that prednisone does with mood and hunger and anxiety and sleeplessness, and also just the symptoms related to the disease, the fatigue and being tired and trying to think of, how am I going to prep food? How am I going to exercise? So hopefully we can speak to these issues in today's presentation, and that you come away with this feeling a bit more informed.
Okay, next slide. I'll just go into some of the numbers that Danka mentioned. As she said, the willpower to continue and the lack of knowledge are the top two reasons. And if we go to the next slide, we realize that it's a complicated issue. And these are the things that Danka reflected. MG related issues, and then plenty of things that go beyond MG. So everyone's, my favorite comment that we received was, life gets complicated. And I think that's very true. So today, Danka's going to arm us with some of that knowledge that we're looking for, and she'll talk about ways to cope with things. We'll start the presentation and go from there.
I'd like to welcome everyone to Eating to Combat Prednisone Weight Gain. My name is Danka Lakovic. I'm a NASM certified personal trainer and nutrition coach. I welcome everybody here today. I know you're all here because you want to make change, and you realize how important you are and how important your health is. So I'm very happy to have everyone here so we can talk about this very important topic today. Main topics that we're going to focus on are basically foods to avoid. These are the big questions: foods to eat, the importance of reading labels, and then tips to get on track and stay on track. First, just to touch on prednisone side effects, which many of you are familiar with. First one being weight gain, hypertension, high blood pressure, high triglycerides, insulin resistance, diabetes, and mood lability, kind of those up and down mood swings. These are essentially the same side effects that come with the standard American diet. So I can really appreciate folks with MG that are on prednisone. You kind of have a double effort that you're up against, and you know the struggles are amplified being on prednisone, and also the same side effects from consuming the standard American diet that you're up against. So basically, the standard American diet is comprised of over half what I call ultra-processed foods. Another third is comprised of animal products, and roughly 15% is made up of vegetables, fruits, nuts, beans, and whole grains. And ironically, that 15% should be the majority, and the other 85 that we consume really should be in the minority. So people ask themselves, how should you eat in order to mitigate the weight gain and the other side effects associated with taking prednisone and eating the standard American diet? So basically eating a diet rich in whole, unprocessed foods that includes quality protein, high fiber vegetables and fruits, whole grains, and healthy fats. So going back to that pie chart, we're only consuming that at a rate of 15%. And that should be what we mostly eat, not the other processed foods and the high amount of animal products. So to define a whole food and compare it to an ultra-processed food, a whole food is unprocessed or minimally processed. So there are basically a lot of the foods that we eat are processed, such as olive oil. It's taken from its original state, an olive, and it's pressed to extract oil. So that is considered a processed food. It's minimally processed. Fermented foods like kimchi, yogurts, those are all processed foods, but they're healthy choices. Canned sardines, again, a healthy food, but it's processed. And then foods as close to their natural state as possible. Apples, oranges, those are easy examples of something that you can pick off the tree and eat. Ultra processed foods, on the other hand, they incorporate added salt, sweeteners, and fats. They add artificial colors, flavors, or preservatives, and they're made to be highly palatable. So in other words, food manufacturers, they manufacture or create food in factories, and they do it to be really yummy. They make it extra rich, salty, sweet, so that it has a long shelf life and it is tasty, and they want to make sure that you will make repeat purchases of their food and buy it again and again. So those are the ultra processed foods that make up 55% of the standard American diet that are the problem. Foods that you want to avoid are those processed, highly refined foods. Also avoid sugar and artificial sweeteners in your food and beverage. The artificial sweeteners do not necessarily help in curbing the cravings. Trans fats, hydrogenated fats, vegetable oils, those are things you want to avoid. Also, alcohol consumption. There's always a debate on this, but my personal opinion is 0 to no alcohol is probably the best bet for optimizing your health. Processed foods are not recognized by the body as food, so they may dysregulate the immune system. That leads to weight gain from chronic inflammation. So a lot of these foods that we're consuming that are ultra processed, they trigger that inflammation response in our bodies, and that keeps us in a state of chronic inflammation. Not good when you're trying to combat weight gain. So whole foods, obviously that's the go-to. We want to consume whole foods. And again, this is the 15% of the standard American diet. The vegetables and fruits, the seeds and the nuts, the healthy fats, whole grains, beans and legumes, lean meats, fatty fish, Also, I recommend unlimited water and the liberal use of spices and herbs as well to kind of flavor your food instead of adding a lot of salt. Don't be misled by the marketing on the front of the package. And I think a lot of people struggle with the frustration and they say, I'm eating healthy, I don't see any change. And I think we have to take a step back and ask ourselves, are we really eating healthy by relying on what the food industry is telling us is healthy? And we're listening to marketing on the front of the package that says all natural. You know, we choose things that say fat-free or low-fat, multi-grain, diet, organic. Not necessarily, there's no guarantee that those foods are not high in refined ingredients, sugars, trans fats, sodium. So don't be misled. And the way to do that is really by being an educated consumer. Learn to read nutrition labels and look for added sugars, refined flours, trans fats, preservatives and additives, sodium, which is especially detrimental if you have MG, artificial colors and flavors, and pay attention to serving size. A lot of times a big bag of something, you might eat the whole thing, but when you read what the serving size is and multiply that by how much you've eaten, it can kind of shock you. And here are some examples. And we think of, again, yogurt as healthy. This is Yoplait, a very popular national brand that's been around forever. First ingredient is reduced fat milk. Second ingredient is sugar. So ingredients are listed in prevalence. So sugar actually comes before strawberries. Modified cornstarch, which is a thickener, and the kosher gelatin, those are all kind of thickeners and stabilizers. Natural flavor, which is not natural at all. All chemicals are natural. Water is made of chemicals. So the food manufacturer, the FDA doesn't really define what a natural flavor is, but food manufacturers actually employed food chemists to make these chemical mixtures that flavor your food, and it's far from natural. It's colored with carmine. Carmine is actually crushed up insects that are processed to give vibrant color to food, and you're going to find it in things like ice cream and yogurt. People with certain protein allergies can get allergies from consuming foods with carmine, so that's something to avoid. And it's unnecessary. We don't, again, want to consume a food based on the fact that the manufacturer is making it look better to us, taste better, be sweeter. We kind of want to stick to foods as natural, as in their natural state as possible. Then there's good old Campbell's soup, another label. If you look at this particular example is tomato soup, which is a favorite for a lot of people. Sodium, 480 milligrams. You think that's not high at 20% of daily allowance, 20 grams of carbs, 12 grams of sugars, 2 grams of protein. But the serving size is half a cup, and most people eat the whole can. So we're looking at about 1,300 milligrams of sodium, 50 grams of carbs, and a whopping 30 grams of sugar, and a paltry 5 grams of protein. So and 1 gram of fiber in half a cup. So you're just going to get a few grams of fiber in the full can. So it's actually very low in good nutrients, very low in protein, very low in fiber, very high in sugar, and very high in sodium. Bread, which is another staple of the American diet. We use it for breakfast, we use it for lunch to make sandwiches. And you look at this and you say 12 grain and seed bread, this is healthy. However, the first ingredient, enriched wheat flour, is actually refined wheat flour. It's not whole grain. The second ingredient is water, and the third ingredient is actually brown sugar. So the third ingredient is sugar. And this particular bread actually has 4 forms of sugar in it: brown sugar, honey, raisin juice concentrate, and molasses. So 4 different types of sugar are used in greater prevalence than the seeds and the other whole grains. It also has monoglycerides in it, which is a trans fat. It's used as an emulsifier and a binder in foods, but it's actually a trans fat. So that actually also is pro-inflammatory. And it has preservatives in it as well. And soy lecithin is another problematic ingredient that's used as an emulsifier. And again, these are all things that maintain shelf life. They're preservatives and make the texture appealing to consumers. Peanut butter, again, we consider that to be something that's good for you. It's got protein, it's made of peanuts. Here again are 2 national brands. The choice of choosy moms, Jif and Skippy. If you read the label, it is made first from roasted peanuts and sugar. It contains fully hydrogenated vegetable oils, mono and diglycerides, and salt. And this is the Jif. But the label says no trans fats. So the way that these trans fats are used in the product, they're used as emulsifiers to prevent oil separation. The FDA then doesn't require you to list it as a trans fat. So this label is really misleading. It's got those really bad trans fats in it that are really bad for your heart, cause a lot of inflammation. But you look at the label and you're misled by the fact that it says it has 0 trans fats. And the same with the Skippy. It also has the mono and diglycerides. Those are trans fats. It has preservatives in it. It has soybean and rapeseed oil. It also has corn syrup solids, which it uses in greater prevalence than sugar. So an even more highly refined sweetener in Skippy. Oatmeal. We know oatmeal is good for you, and a lot of us have Quaker oats in our pantry. This particular example, Quaker oats, it's maple and brown sugar. It doesn't contain maple or brown sugar. It has 13 grams of sugar, artificial colors and flavors. So it's colored to look like it has maple and brown sugar. It has the natural flavors that we talked about to make it taste like maple and brown sugar, but it has nothing close to maple and brown sugar in it. When we talk about the label of organic, and we tend to have a real favorable view of products that are certified organic. And this is the Annie's Organic Bunny Fruit Snacks. And they contain 11 grams of sugar, no protein, and no fiber. In fact, there's no fruit in it. First ingredient is tapioca syrup, and the second is pear juice concentrate. And then it goes on to different forms of sugars and some gelatins and things to make it in its gummy form. The organic label doesn't mean it's good for you, clearly. And ironically, if you compare this to Welch's brand, the Welch's fruit snacks, Welch's actually has real fruit in it. It has 3 grams of fiber and 2 grams of protein per serving. So if I were to choose between the two, I would choose the Welch's conventional over the Annie's organic. So there's no guarantee that something is labeled organic. It's still organic sugar. It's still not good for you. They're not always the best choice. So a couple of clean labels, just to give you that stark contrast. Peanut butter. This is the Whole Foods peanut butter brand. There's one ingredient, and that is organic dry roasted peanuts. So this is what you want to choose. It's got 2 grams of naturally occurring sugars, 7 grams of protein per serving, 7 grams of carbs. It's got 2 grams of fiber. There's no sodium in this and no cholesterol naturally. And it is truly trans fat free. So this would be what you would choose. And going back to yogurt. And this particular example is the Fage plain Greek yogurt. If you look at the ingredient list, and again, the sodium is naturally occurring. It has grade A pasteurized milk and cream and live active yogurt cultures. and that is it. A whopping 23 grams of complete protein. So this would be pretty much an optimal choice if you're going to choose. And this is the fat-free version. So it's important when you're shopping and you're reading labels to learn the different names for sugar. Some of them are obvious: organic raw sugar, evaporated cane juice, high fructose corn syrup, molasses. We've heard of agave, maltodextrin, but there are actually close to 60 different names for sugar. So that can be kind of tough navigating that on labels, but there are many names for sugar. So another thing I want to talk about is cravings versus hunger. And a craving is an intense or uncontrollable desire for a particular food. And these foods tend to be sweet, salty, and fatty, highly processed junk foods. We don't crave broccoli ever, right? But we do have cravings for cookies, for sweets, for potato chips. And these foods are made by food manufacturers to be foods that we crave. When you eat them, they release the feel-good chemicals that make you wanting more. They also mess with your blood sugar. And if you consume cookies or any kind of processed foods, you get a spike in your blood sugar. A couple of hours later, it crashes and you're back to that same craving. And that's the cycle that you want to break. Hunger, on the other hand, it's your body calling for energy. And it occurs when you haven't eaten for hours and doesn't go away. So it's important really to choose high fiber, protein rich foods that keep your blood sugar at a stable state. You don't have these crashes and give into these cravings. When you shop at the grocery store, here are some good rules to live by. Look for the whole unprocessed foods, as we discussed. Buy organic produce when possible and organic foods. Shop the periphery of the store, which means the dairy section, the meat, the fresh foods. The aisles are where all the processed foods reside for the most part. So you want to avoid aisle shopping and be an educated consumer. Read the back of the box and ignore the eye-catching marketing on the front. Shop with a list and stick with it. And again, when you're choosing your whole unprocessed foods, as the saying goes, eat the rainbow and choose vegetables, fruits in various colors, eat a variety of food. When you eat, fill your plate with protein, vegetables, fruits, whole grains, and healthy fat. And if it works for you, eat several small meals a day. That works for a lot of people, just to eat small amounts throughout the day and keep your blood sugar kind of stable and keep true hunger at bay. You don't want to wait until you're really famished to start making food choices. And when you snack, choose high fiber foods. As Americans, we are not nearly getting enough fiber daily. So choose fiber-rich, protein-rich foods to keep you full longer, regulate your blood sugar, and aid in digestive health. Some examples of foods: hummus, vegetables, you can combine those, low sugar fruits such as berries, cheeses, unsweetened yogurt, nuts or nut butter paired with fruit. I know my kids love apple slices with nut butter. Avocado, that's another great thing to keep on hand. You can top it with tuna or some chopped eggs. Hard-boiled eggs are a great thing to have on hand as well. But just remember, choose fiber. Choose fiber and protein. Try food prepping. Cook in big batch. So soups and stews are great to cook in a big batch, and they tend to taste better as time goes on. Cook 5 of your proteins at once. That'll last in the fridge for 5 days. Most foods will stay for 5 days, with the exception of cooked seafood. That is about a couple days. Make side dishes in large amounts. Cook a pot of quinoa. make 4 sweet potatoes, a pot of rice, some beans, hard-boiled a dozen eggs, and keep in your refrigerator for breakfast, lunch, or as a snack. And what I like to do for my kids, especially throughout the week, is I'll make a big pot of oatmeal and I scoop out a serving, heat it up, and top it with some fruit and a splash of milk, a drizzle of honey, and that also works very well. So you want to have good foods at the ready when you are hungry. Now, this sounds like a luxury, but consider a food delivery service. It can be quite economical, not as expensive as you might think, considering what it costs to eat out or what fast food costs, and it limits the trips to the grocery store and to fast food. You can choose your dietary preferences if you want vegetarian, if you want gluten-free, if you want to do a paleo diet. I mean, there's so many things you can filter. Ingredients and recipes are included and ready to be cooked. A lot of times you can find food services that will prep the food for you and it's already chopped and ready to go. A few that I like are Blue Apron, HelloFresh. There's some also that are like Home Chef and Every Plate. They're for the budget conscious. And you can kind of compromise and maybe use a food service just for dinner and do your lunch and breakfast, or use a food service for breakfast and lunch and cook dinner at home. You know, do whatever works for you, kind of find that happy medium. It's just important because you have to realize you're important, so it's worth the investment in your health. So mental, physical, and social support will bring it all together. So that's kind of the knowledge part of it. Be mindful of your actual level of hunger and really kind of focus on that and ask yourself, am I having a craving? Am I really hungry? And if you are having an intense craving, you can satisfy it in some way. But stop eating also when you eat a meal before you actually feel very full. And that's something that takes practice. Focus on the journey to better eating and realize it takes time. It's all, again, this is a process, it's a journey, it's not an event, and it takes time to make these habits stick. Let go of self-judgment, no negative self-talk, only positive self-talk. Aim for progress, not perfection. Perfection doesn't exist. So just aim for getting better. Practice breathing techniques to keep stress at bay, or whatever keeps stress at bay for you, whether it's doing some yoga poses, going for a long walk, taking a hot shower, getting out a book, listening to a podcast. Just find something that'll soothe you and keep your stress down, because that's another really important element, is keeping stress at bay. And that also avoids stress eating. Change. Change is tough, even when we want change. So start with one small goal and commit yourself to that goal. Learn from failures and ask for support. An example would be maybe having a goal of wanting to add more vegetables to your plate. And it sounds simple, but that is a good goal to start with. Maybe eliminating some of the more refined carbs and replacing it with some more veggies, and working on that till you master that. Then add another goal once you feel you've mastered that small goal. Replacing your daily Snickers bar perhaps with a serving of dark chocolate. But work up to it and realize it's not going to be perfect. You're going to fall off your bike, but you have to get up and you have to keep going. Ask for help too, and just keep doing it, just repeating it and not giving up. And change eventually happens, and eventually you will succeed. But you have to have that mindset that you'll succeed and that it won't be perfect and the process won't be perfect. Physical supports. And again, exercise reduces stress and inflammation in the body. I know it's tough with MG. Exercise, it varies from person to person, from day to day. All the benefits of it, though, are so important. So start where you're at and start slowly and progress gradually. Whatever you can do, if it means walking up and down the stairs, if you go for a short walk, just practice getting up out of your chair, doing housework. That's all functional movement. Putting your laundry away, cleaning the windows one day. Just anything wherever you're at, And there's also on the YouTube channel of Conquer MG, there's a great video on exercise in MG by Julie Hossack, certified personal trainer, that is very well worth watching to give you tips on exercise with MG. But the key is to start slowly and progress gradually, and just start where you're at and take it day by day, depending on how you feel. Oops. Sorry about this. Then social supports, and this is a really important component, asking for help, asking family and other members of the household to support your healthy eating habits, and really stressing that it's important to you and that your health is to you. You know, you want to get support from your family. Also recruit family and friends to cooking. You know, just ask for help. I know it makes you feel vulnerable, but you have to ask for help. And surround yourself, most importantly, with positive, supportive people to help you with your journey to a healthy lifestyle. So really make sure that you have you supporting you on the journey. And again, it's not something that happens overnight. It's a process, it's a journey, but eventually you get there. Just to summarize everything we talked about, eating a whole foods diet, we talked about what that meant. Just being aware of what is in the foods you eat. Even if you make the bad choices sometimes, just that first step of awareness, eventually you'll start thinking about it and change the choice you make. Reach your goals by utilizing all these tools and the strategies for change. And ask for help and don't give up. And take it day by day. And if you fail, just the next day is a new day, and just keep trying. Don't give up. Realize how important you are and how important your health is. And that should be motivation to keep you trying every day. So eventually you'll succeed. You just don't give up and keep asking for help. And that is it. And I hope that was really a lot of useful information for you on today's topic. And I'm very happy to hopefully have helped someone today and answered some questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Danka. Why don't we head to the questions that I know we had received a few of them, and Danka's going to tackle them kind of one by one, and then I'll share any new ones that come up.
Okay. There was one in particular person said, I'm losing weight even on prednisone due to the side effects of nausea and also difficulty chewing and swallowing from MG. I'm worried about not getting the proper nutrition to combat the other effects of the steroids. Addressing the side effects and difficulty swallowing, I think, would be something to address with a physician. But definitely, I can understand your concern about proper nutrition. It's definitely important. So eating nutrient-dense, high-protein, high-fiber foods would be good. And I know it's tough with energy levels, but a good way to get calories packed in is through smoothies, where you can add some protein powders, you can add veggies and fruits. I like to put in some avocado as well, so you can add some healthy fats. Even oats you can put into a smoothie so that you get sustained, slow release of carbs to keep you full longer. So I recommend, I think, a way to get in a lot of nutrition and calories is with a smoothie, and just kind of custom tailor it to using nutrient-dense, protein-rich foods. Hopefully that answers the question.
What was one of the other questions?
Also, tips for curbing appetite, and I kind of touched on this with keeping blood sugar stable, eating high fiber foods. Proteins take about 4 hours to digest. Complex carbs can take roughly the same, 4 to 5 hours. Healthy, like fats, can take 5 to 6 hours. So the fact that they take longer to digest means that they keep you full longer. Whereas a simple sugar, a simple carb, highly refined, is digested within 45 minutes to about an hour and a half. So again, those are those foods, highly refined, sugary foods that you eat and you're hungry in 2 hours, and that's why. Because your body digests them. They're so broken down and refined that your body digests them very rapidly. Your blood sugar falls and you're hungry again. So to curb that, just going back to eating a protein, high fiber foods, adding a healthy fat, that's going to keep your digestion process going longer and keep you full longer. So the snacks that I recommended, the hummus and the veggies and eating eggs and cheese and nuts, your body takes a much longer time to digest those. And so you're going to stay full longer. And it keeps the blood sugar stable. So you should be able to avoid those crashes that lead to cravings. Then I had another one where an individual said their weight is okay, but they're tired to move. So some days I have energy and need more food, and some days I can barely move and need to eat differently. And I think that's perfectly fine. I think we all have those days. The days that you have energy and you can move and your appetite's great, you should listen to your body and eat well and feed your body well and still make good food choices and you know, satisfy those needs. But when you don't feel well and you're exhausted, it may not, your body's actually maybe telling you I'm exhausted, and eating, digestion can be taxing. So eating when you don't feel the need to eat and you feel exhausted, I think is okay. Just as long as the things you eat that you choose to eat are, again, are nutritious and just feel good for you that particular day, I think is important. So those were just 3 particular questions. And I know we had a question about vegetarian diet, and I don't know if that might be too long to address in this Q&A. But that has another host of vitamin deficiencies and things like that that are complicated, maybe for another time.
Okay. Was there any other question that we got in advance that you wanted to tackle? I've got a couple here.
If you want to remind me of, I think that was it of the ones that I got ahead of time. Mom's on a call, Natty. Can you close the door? I'll be done in a minute. Sorry about that.
Who are you talking to?
It's just it's a present. Natty, can you close the door, sweetie? Sorry about that.
One question we had was, let's see, where'd it go? A couple of things that we were asked about that we'd like to address in more detail, like in our newsletter or something like that, is eating to fine tune your immune system. We're hoping to cover that in our next webinar in a few months ahead, our next nutrition focused webinar. We also got asked about osteoporosis. What can I do to build bone strength? And that is another topic that we think deserves a fair amount of time. So we're going to talk about that in the future. I think that's about it. And
yeah, I don't see additional questions.
Okay, ones that we got today, let's see. Are there any sweeteners that you would recommend using in tea or yogurt? This person's using Splenda right now.
Yeah, I recommend stevia. If you've heard of stevia, I use stevia powder, and again, it's considered safe. I don't know much about Splenda. I think that's sucralose, but I avoid the sucralose and the aspartame with stevia. Monk fruit, I think, are good sweeteners. And I think that's what they're known as, actually, monk fruit and stevia. But you want to choose a stevia that's pure and doesn't have fillers in it. So you want to make sure you read the label and it says it just contains stevia and no other fillers in it. because there are some forms of stevia. They're all highly processed items, but and it's also intensely sweet. So you want to start out with a tiny amount of stevia. It's about 300 times as sweet as sugar. So start with a tiny amount and then kind of figure out your taste. But I consider stevia safe, and that's what I use.
Okay, thanks. I have one question, and I think this is nutrition related. Are there foods that you can focus on to combat the lack of sleep?
Oh, that's a tough one. I think when I'm tired, I would just focus on eating lighter foods and heavy carbs tend to make the sleep kind of exacerbate that feeling of heaviness and tax your digestive system. And really, when you're tired, it's the last thing you want to do is eat heavy meals. So I would say stick to light, just protein-rich meals, nothing that's too hard to digest. Not even going heavy on whole grains and things like that, but keeping it simple with proteins and fruits and veggies. And trying to take a nap during the day helps too. Honestly, even 20 minutes resets it, gives you a little bit of a reset.
Great. I'm reading this. I just sort of go blind when faced with processed foods, looking for quick energy. How can I work on this mindset? Also, high fiber foods seem to make my Myasthenia diarrhea worse. Do you have any ideas?
What was the first part of the question about processed?
Sure. Okay. It says, I just sort of go blind when faced with processed foods, and I'm looking for quick energy. How can I work on that mindset?
Okay. That's a really tough one. You just have to start replacing I know it sounds, you have to start. I would not try to buy less of the processed food so that it's not available to you. If you can't resist giving in to the processed food, try to not make it available to you. Try not to keep it in the house. Again, choose something that's sweet, but a lesser evil. Chocolate is one that people reach for, and I always say go for a dark chocolate. Just try it. Try not to eliminate it completely, but choose a healthier option and keep that, at hand. I'm not going to tell you if you eat a Snickers bar every day, oh, well, replace it with an apple, because that's a big jump. But try at least to go with a dark chocolate. And it's funny because a lot of people say, oh, well, I'm eating granola bars instead, or I'm eating protein bars instead. And a lot of times these items can have just as much sugar as a candy bar. So you really want to find bars or with very simple ingredients. And as far as fiber, then just don't try to keep a lower fiber diet, but at least use the proteins and the healthy fats to keep you full longer, because they do take longer to digest. And maybe keep the fiber lower if that's an issue for you. But still try to get an adequate amount that you can tolerate.
I know we've had, I've got a resource too that I can pass on as a follow-up about another nutritionist had pulled together some information about how to work with the diarrhea that's sometimes associated with Myasthenia or pyridostigmine. So pass that along. Let's see. I'll go back to this. I was diagnosed with myasthenia in 2015. I take prednisone on and off. However, I want to eat the walls while I'm on it. Some things to combat this feeling. It's kind of the same message you've told us a couple times already, right?
Yeah.
In terms of food choices. Okay.
Yeah, it's food choices, and it's unfortunately a side effect for many on prednisone, where it's just the eating and the cravings are uncontrollable. And a lot of it is mindset technique. No, go right ahead.
Okay.
But yeah, it's just. No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Okay. I was moving on to another question. Okay.
Oh yeah, sure.
Okay. How bad are potatoes?
Potatoes? Potatoes are not bad. It's about portion and preparation. Potatoes are good for you. They have a lot of nutritional value. It's just about, again, the portion and the preparation. I would say having a small baked potato with dinner is perfectly fine. Whether you load it with sour cream and butter and is another issue. And if you're having, I certainly never recommend fried foods and not French fries, but I think it's portion and preparation, or having steamed new potatoes. Again, they have fiber, they have protein. They're not bad for you. It's just keeping your portions in control, in check.
Here's a comment, and maybe you can comment on this. It's expensive to eat healthy.
Well, again, I would say choose quality over quantity and look at it too as a long-term investment in your health. It's also expensive. I mean, you have to choose kind of your priorities, and it is expensive to eat healthy, but try to cook more, and you'd see like preparing at home makes things more economical. Fast food is also not, and eating out are not very economical. They're very expensive. And again, I think reducing portion size. And if you have a piece of salmon, yes, salmon can be expensive, but you don't have to eat an 8-ounce piece of salmon. Really, a portion is 3 ounces is all you need. So I think we've gotten used to such big portion sizes and eating a certain amount of food. I think reducing portions and increasing food quality is important. And just doing the best you can. You can't always buy organic, and so buy conventional, and that's fine. At least make a good food choice, but just doing the best you can is all you can do.
Mm-hmm. Great. Being sick is expensive, and if you can,
I was going to say that being sick is very expensive. I just had an MRI, and I'll be paying that off for a long time.
Yeah. I'm not sure if there's an answer to this one. How can I lose fatty areas that prednisone weight gain tends to gather at?
That's really tough. There's no nutritional advice that can counter that. That's a metabolic thing that happens on prednisone, and it's even not on prednisone. You can't spot reduce areas of fat. You can just aim to lose fat overall, by diet and as much exercise as you can. But I can't really speak to how, because again, the prednisone causes that. That's a metabolic issue with prednisone. So it's more medical.
Sure. Here's not a question, but a comment. I recently discovered that chewing 30 times per bite really helps too. So
Well,
we've got some.
I mean, whatever tips and techniques work for you. If you have the energy to chew 30 bites, then you can. It might be difficult for others, but that's a great example of just finding what works for you. And definitely.
Okay, how about this one? Trying to keep muscle mass on with MG is difficult. How much protein do we need?
And that varies, and there's a lot of controversy surrounding that, but generally you want to have between 0.8 and 1.1 grams of protein per pound of body weight. And 1.1 is on the high end. That's if you're really fairly active and can work out, but 0.8 is really the minimum. So if you are, and I'll get my calculator out, but if you are, let's say 130-pound female, you'd want to shoot for about 105 grams a day. And that's much higher than what the FDA says that we need for protein per day. It's as low as 35 to 45 grams a day. And I think that's way too low. And I think it's safe to go much higher than that. And I think it's necessary.
What would that look like, Danka? Like that much?
Well, you want to aim for each meal 20 to 30 grams of protein, and it doesn't have to be just in your meat. You don't have to aim for a piece of chicken that has 30 grams of protein in it, but you can kind of layer it. You can have a 3 to 4 ounce chicken breast with some quinoa, which is filled with protein. So there's ways to get your protein not just from meat. And so you want to aim for, let's say, 3 to 4 meals with 20 to 30 grams of protein per meal, because your body can't really utilize over that. If you have trouble getting that much in, try a protein shake. There's great options for whey protein, vegan proteins, but that's a good way to get in extra protein if you have trouble getting it down otherwise. And yeah, I think protein is very important, and it also, again, takes longer to digest and keeps you full, and it feeds your muscles. The only way to really recover is by eating a sufficient amount of protein.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm gonna do one more question, and I think we're definitely up at our time, right? Okay. Just one thought. What would be some ideas to eat for breakfast, lunch, and dinner? That's a very long question, but just throw out a sample.
Okay. Well, breakfast tends to be, I think, a day where you want to, a meal where you want to have your either, I can give an example, like oatmeal, for instance. I have oatmeal and I add a little bit of a banana and pumpkin puree to it. And I will sweeten it with a bit of stevia, and I top it with some cottage cheese. And I know that sounds kind of crazy, but like that's what I like. Or my children might have a piece of toast with some avocado spread on it and a cooked egg and some sauteed spinach. So you can have something savory too, something that's kind of filling. You want some proteins, you know, veggies are good for breakfast too. So in particular, I like eggs and spinach combination, or an omelet, great. And you can add veggies to that. For lunch, I think salads are good with just a few ounces of protein. I tend to mix raw ingredients in my salad, like kale and shaved Brussels sprouts, and then I'll throw in some roasted red peppers, or I'll do artichoke hearts, and I'll really get raw beets. Again, just, yeah, I know. Things that are really kind of fiber rich, nutrient dense. I top that with protein, and it can be leftovers from last night, or I tend to do plant-based for lunch. So I'll do tofu or tempeh, hard-boiled egg, and I'll do a very light dressing. And I tend to have a cup of tea with that. For dinner, you want to aim for 4 to 6 ounces of protein, some nice side dish of maybe a sweet potato or other complex carb, and some lettuce, like sauteed greens I like, or mushrooms or peppers, just again, eating a variety of foods and limiting it at that. And dessert, again, I think we have this mentality that we have to have dessert every day, but it shouldn't be a daily routine. But if you want to enjoy it on occasion, then enjoy it. But I avoid the pitfalls of daily dessert. And instead I'll have, again, an ounce of dark chocolate. And this is kind of like an example, but you don't have to follow what I eat, but just pattern it to what your likes are.
Great.
And at bedtime, before bed, it's good to have a protein-rich snack as well. A little bit of cottage cheese to kind of fuel your muscles overnight.
Well, thank you. I think that sounds like a delicious menu for the day. And thanks for those ideas. I think that's about all we have time for questions wise. Danka, thank you so much. Thanks for your patience and pitching in at the right time. And thank you to everybody who hung with us. And we truly appreciate your support. Yeah. If you appreciated this information, please know that we'd appreciate your support as well, just so that we're able to continue to operate. And let's see, if you would like more information, last thing I'll say about myasthenia gravis, please visit our website at www.myastheniagravis.org. Thanks very much.
Thank you.